I made this big mistake on law review. My name is Kimber Marie, your lawyer friend who is obsessed with all things intellectual property. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I am memorializing my time in law school so that way as time passes, I don't forget all these details, and that way, hopefully, it can help aspiring law students and current law students who are going through law school. Today, I'm talking about my law review experience. I'm going to try and be as comprehensive as possible, but also try to keep it short and sweet. I mean, it's YouTube, it's long form content, right? So to start, we'll start at the beginning, 1L year. For us, and again, I think this is standard at most law schools, the write-on competition, and again, the format of the write-on competition will vary from school to school. The school I went to, it occurred over spring break. We had a short time period to get our write-on tasks done. It's a mix of an editing quiz and then as well as a writing, closed universe writing project. But again, it will vary from year to year and from campus to campus. My approach for law review was hearing from other students, like in the classes before me, what has their experience been like on law review? Did they enjoy it? Was it worth it? Getting to know them. And then I also did spend a little bit of time trying to study the Blue Book just a little bit more than I needed to, and also looking up what law review note formats look like. I'm first gen, but even if you're not first gen and you have lawyers in your family, I still think most people don't know what a law review note looks like. Put in some time to sit down and Google, what is a law review note? What can I expect? That was my approach. I did the write-on. I got the call that I made it onto law review. I was very happy. This was a big goal for me, primarily because I love writing, reading, researching, editing. I have done freelancing in my spare time for various publications like since high school. And so this was definitely something I wanted to pursue. But there's also a lot of reasons to be interested in law review. Yes, there is the aspect of it does look good on a resume. There are some traditional firms that will be looking for that for candidates. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I'll speak more to this at the end of the video about that outdated thinking that the best candidates are the ones who were on law review. I'll get to that in a minute. I made it on to the team, the staff, whichever, and we officially started trying to think. That was in spring. So if I remember correctly, we did have some intro meetings right after that. And then over the summer, we began with our staff writer position editing. This was basically a lot of Blue Book citation editing. There was, reading of full articles. We did a rotation schedule. So we would have two people who would be responsible for reading the full article, helping with grammatical, substantive edits, and then everyone else would get like a chunk of the footnotes to go through and do Blue Book edits on. And at the same time that we were doing that, we had a mentor who was in the class above us who was going in and looking at our edits and giving us feedback, letting us know if we were editing correctly. So that was like our training process. Once fall came around, that was the time that we were voting new leadership into place. And going into that, I was like, I sure as hell don't want to be editor-in-chief, because that is even more responsibility than law review already was. So I was just not interested in that position, even though it's very easy to convince yourself oh, that would look so good on a resume. But when the time came to do the vote, I just was like, I'm not putting my name in the hat. When it came to the vote on the symposium team, I was very interested in that, primarily because I had prioritized networking at this point. I was very good at that. And I had an idea for how the symposium could look, and I would love to help make that happen and work with other people to see what their ideas are. So I campaigned for chief symposium editor, and by campaign, I mean literally within a matter of like 5 minutes when I made that decision, stood up, gave my pitch, and then we voted and I got it. And so basically that position was chief symposium editor, was working with 2 symposium editors to make the symposium happen. Our theme was, the name was actually HODL and Horizons, the intersection between law and technology, something to that effect. So the whole day was centered around topics that had to do with new technologies changing the legal landscape. We had our article authors come in and do a panel. We had, I think, a total of 3 symposium articles that were going into the journal. And then the rest were just people that we had found, professors that were recommended to us by our symposium advisor, who I brought on to give us direction because we definitely needed help with guidance on how to plan such a big event. We had other speakers, a lot of them were IP professors, and it was a very fascinating subject, a very timely subject, and it was great. The process of planning was very time intensive and stressful, primarily because when you're planning an event on a school campus, and this is going to be the case no matter what campus you're on, you have to go through administration to make sure that everything you're doing is kosher. And so there were, I guess, just moments where things weren't moving as fast as I would have liked, like it's not the same as like hosting a dinner party at your home, right? Because you make all the decisions there, but this is a school event, so the school is involved and also in planning it with you. Looking back, the biggest mistake I made on law review though was not delegating enough. And that's not to say, like, I was very conscious of like, I want them to feel involved. We had one person focus on making sure that we had our CLE coverage for the event. And then another person was like our hospitality person. So they looked into buying gifts for our speakers, thanking them, making sure that the setup and the teams that we had for doing sign-in was there. But as we were going along, a lot of the work really is just making sure that people will come, like speakers will come and show up, and that their travel and lodging is taken care of. And so it's just a lot of emailing and pitching to people to see if they'll come and speak and if they're available. A lot of that emailing could have been delegated more, and that's on me. I was scared at the time of if like just making it more complicated than it could have been, having too many people involved in the same process. But I think there could have been ways we could have divvied it up more. So that was a big leadership lesson for me, was to not be afraid of delegating more, especially when things were getting stressful, because I was getting stressed at certain points. And I'm also proud of myself because there were some frustrating moments with figuring out dates and stuff. And if you are in a leadership position like that, I encourage you to speak up. Like, be respectful, but be honest about any obstacles or conflicts you're dealing with to your advisors, to your mentors, to the school, so that way you can get them ironed out as soon as possible. So that was the symposium stuff. Like, in a nutshell, that's basically what that was. That was its own separate event that the symposium team was responsible for. Our second year in law school, the big focus is everyone's taking on their leadership positions. And then on top of handling those, you're training the 1Ls coming in, who are the staff writers. So we're responsible for conducting the write-on, choosing who, grading the write-on, choosing from that who made it. And then from there, also writing our law review notes. And this is like the big thing that a lot of law students get onto law review for. The law review note is basically an opportunity to do your own in-depth academic research on a subject, and it is a big deal. It's something to be proud of. My focus, I really wanted to do something on the overlap between AI and copyright and moral rights. My mentor for my law review note, he taught my IP class, contracts, and my internet law class, so he knows his stuff. And he definitely, there were moments where we had to have some come to Jesus talks, because as I said in my video about 2L year, my mental health was not doing great. And that resulted in me procrastinating on some things, which means that my work product was just not as good as it usually is. Even though I loved my subject, and I know it could have been a lot better than it was, by the end of that year, when it was time to submit my note to our law review leaders, I was just like, I'm not gonna put it up for publication. You have to submit it for credit, so that way like they sign off on you participated and did law review. Basically, you're asked 2 questions. Did you complete your law review note, which they can tell when you submit it? And then 2, do you want to put it up for publication? If you say yes to that, the people who are responsible for picking out who gets published, they will go through that group of papers and they have their own grading process and they decide on who gets published. So by the end of, I believe, the end of 2L year, beginning of 3L year, you're starting to finish the articles that you brought in as a class, plus those who made it to the final round and are getting published from the law review team, and you're starting to get those ready for publication. And if I remember correctly, for us, our deadline was like December. We wanted to get everything out to the publisher by then. And that was usually a very specific group of people within law review who handled that. And just to summarize the note writing process a little bit more, because I feel like I didn't do that super well. Basically, once you make it on law review, you pick a mentor who's going to be the person that advises you through this process. What do you want to write on? For me, my mentor, advisor, whichever word you want to use, basically had me kind of pitch my idea and then come up with an annotated bibliography, which I've never done like officially. Like I think I've done really bad versions of annotated bibliographies in the past, but I've never done like an official one. So that made me feel really stupid. But anyways, he then went through, read over my sources, the flow of the article. What am I getting at with it? Are my sources good? Is the argument that I'm making good, strong, weak? And then from there, I start drafting the article and actually giving it substantive form. And then for us, I think we just had, my deadline was to get a rough draft of the draft to him. He'll review it. I'll go through the rough draft, make final edits, send it back. And then that would be like the last round of edits before I submitted it for publication to our law review. So that was kind of the flow, the process that was in place for the law review note. Advice I would give, so if you make law review, again, time management. Keep your due dates where you can see them. Try and do little chunks of work each day, because for me, that makes big projects manageable. So if you have 50 footnotes you need to go through or 25 footnotes plus research, try and divvy it up so you're doing a little bit each day and don't just put it off until one day, and definitely not the day before something's due. If you're someone that does like sitting down and doing long work sprints and getting as much done as possible in one setting, do that, but just try and plan ahead and give yourself a buffer if you don't get it all done in that one sitting. And so you can go back and review what you did. If you don't make law review, and this gets into my thoughts about law review in general, I do think it's a good opportunity. If you get on it and you're excited about it, I encourage you to do it. But if you're only doing it to put it on your resume, don't do it, because you will be stressed out and miserable. Law review, honestly, it was maybe this is just because of the position I had with planning the symposium, but it felt more like 70% planning and admin stuff and working on a team, like an organization style of team, as opposed to just being like 100% writing, researching, and editing. Like when you join law review, you're joining a team. So you can't just be in it for yourself, right? Like you have to work with other people and communicate, and in some cases even delegate if you get a leadership position. That being said, if you don't get on law review, it is not the end of the world. You can still get published, and I would encourage you to talk with your school about independent studies or other opportunities for joining a journal if they have other journals, or just pursuing your own academic research. Go to your favorite professor whose classes you've loved, who teaches on subjects you're interested in, and talk to them and see if they would be interested in overseeing your own academic research, and then pitch it to publications. Like, nothing is stopping you from pursuing your own publication in journals at other schools or for trade organizations. Like, there's so many opportunities, you just have to go out and find them. I don't think it should be put on this pedestal that so many people have for so long. That's not to say you shouldn't be proud of it. I am proud of my experience on law review, but I don't know. I think we could balance the scales a little bit more when it comes to reviewing people's experience. All in all, law review is a great experience. Again, if it's something that excites you and you enjoy the skills that are needed to do well on law review, then I encourage you to pursue that. But if you dread the detail work of editing and you don't like working on teams, I don't recommend law review. Like, just go and do your own academic research. And again, if you don't get on law review, I promise you there are still opportunities to get published, to do your own thing and get your name out there. You can still get your dream job even if you're not on law review. If you liked these insights and you found them helpful, please subscribe to my channel, give me a follow at Kimber Marie James on my socials, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Thanks.